Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to another Mortal Kombat 1 lore analysis video, with us still having come off the Chaos Reign story trailer. Of course, one of the biggest takeaways was what the hell is going on with Havik here? Why does he have the Kamidogus? And does this now finally mean the return of the One Being? Well, in today's video, we will be breaking that down and analysing it to clear up just how this is possible and what is going on with Havik. Because what I do think is going on here is a very unique case, even amongst the multiple cases of the One Being in the MK universe. But in order for us to understand what's truly going on with him, let's first talk about the One Being to understand his significance as well as his multiple hosts. Now of course, to kick things off, who and what is exactly the One Being? Well, the One Being is the very first primordial of the Mortal Kombat universe, having been formed from within the void before time itself. He is both one and all, a progenitor to all things divine like the Elder Gods and presumably the Titans themselves. Because of this, the One Being could be seen as the apex predator, as once the Elder Gods came into existence, the One Being would begin to hunt and feed on them for sustenance and power. In retaliation for his feast, the Elder Gods knew that the only way to beat him would be through the creation of 6 sacred relics, the Kamidogus. Whilst they couldn't physically overpower him, they could split him into smaller fragments, which in turn would shatter his being. Shredded to pieces, the One Being's mind would be scattered across reality, being defeated but not killed, as we will quickly see. But the One Being's death did have purpose, as his body would be used and forged to create the realms as we know them, and from his remains sprung life across all of the realms. Thus, his legacy would be all of the heroes, villains, and characters we know today. So, the One Being is a very important and key figure in the MK universe, as his demise across all timelines is pivotal for the realm and characters to come to be. Yet, this would not be his end. In death, the One Being continues the plot. With his physical body gone, the somewhat spiritual form of the One Being continued to live and pass throughout the realms, seeking a champion that would be worthy enough to re-merge the realms together, thereby giving him shape. From this point onwards, he would go on to influence many individuals in the MK universe. So much so that inevitably, the Elder Gods did sense his return. Thus, to halt his pursuit, they would create the Mortal Kombat tournament, whilst in reality, it was seen as a competition amongst the merging of realms. To the Elder Gods, it was a contingency plan to halt his merge. This, however, did not disgruntle him, as he longed for a perfect host, and did somewhat find one in Onaga. But for one reason or another, Onaga is actually someone who didn't fall under his influence. So it seems that whilst the One Being is able to influence incredibly strong figures, it does seem like beings of strong will or divinity, as dragons in Mortal Kombat are seen as symbols of the gods, are able to push off his influence. Because of this, he would instead turn his gaze to his advisor, Shao. And to guarantee his ascension, the One Being would have Shao poison Onaga, allowing him to usurp his rule, and arguably become the greatest catalyst he'd longed to find, as the Khan was able to conquer many minor realms, increasing his own power. Clearly signs that he was a vessel for the One Being. Eventually though, with his defeat at the hands of Liu Kang, as well as the separation of Edenia from his clutches, the One Being began to look elsewhere for a suitable host. And this is where he would once again cross paths with Onaga. Somewhat like him, the spiritual form of the Dragon King seeked a new host to return, and inevitably did find it in Reptile. Robbed of his somewhat divinity, the Dragon King was now susceptible to his influence, becoming the perfect host for his return. Under the influence of the One Being, Onaga would seek out the Kamidogus to achieve immortality, something the Dragon King long pursued in life. But of course, little did he know, he was but a mere puppet of the deity's control. Of course, such ambitions would not be fulfilled, with Onaga falling to Shigenko, but it was very clear from how he was set up in the 3D era that during Armageddon, he would be the last and final big bad. But unfortunately, such ideas would be swept to the side, because for one reason or another, as the details were never disclosed, the game's main conquest mode would instead focus on Taven and Dagon, with the two being pushed front and center, opposed to the plot lines that were set up in Deception. Now, here where things get a little bit funky, because despite the direction that Midway went with Armageddon, coming into the Netherrealm age of games, we do softly retcon that story, having it so that by the end of Armageddon, instead of Taven having defeated his brother and conquered Blaze, it is that of Shao Kahn, having absorbed his power and merged the realms into one vessel. Unfortunately, his appearance here would be very brief, as he's only ever seen through a host, and Mortal Kombat 9 does pull some time travel shenanigans that does effectively softly reboots the canon. Unfortunately, this is the most exposure we do have to the character in the mainline continuity. Beyond this though, we do actually have another version of the character, but it's only exclusively tied to the animated universe in Mortal Kombat Battle of the Realms. And this is arguably the most accurate depiction of the character, as once Shinnok unifies the Kamidogus, yeah, not Onaga here, upon its completion, the realms and realities begin to merge into one, causing ripples, tears and glitches, as he finally does rise, and the first time we see an actual physical form. So with us having touched on his history of hosts, who exactly are susceptible to his influence? Well, currently with the knowledge we do have here, we can presume mortals, as they are on the lower plane of existence and end of things, looking at you Shigenko, resurrected divine deities, or at least ones that come back through a vessel, looking at you Reptile and Onaga, and up to a certain extent, what you can deem as lesser gods, like Shao, which in turn does softly imply that Raiden and Fujin are also susceptible. Elder gods on the other hand look to be a very different thing. I'm not going to include Shinnok here, due to the fact that Battle of the Realms does take place outside of the main canon. Thus, different creative minds, different creative decisions. So naturally, I will exclude the Elder Gods, and in turn, due to how the hierarchy of power works in MK, presumably the Titans as well. Now of course, this brings us onto Havik, and this is an incredibly unique case we have here, as every possible figure prior to him has been susceptible to the one being in some way. But why not Havik? Why is that so the case? Well, first off, let's touch on the unique physiology and origin of the Chaos Realm. Now, Chaos Realmers are a very unique bunch. From their incredible regenerative abilities to language to their powers, they've always defied the laws of both life and death, transcending it and even existing beyond it. But such power would not have been bestowed upon them if it wasn't for the Chaos God, who caused what's known as the Cataclysm, a seismic devastating event that would cause literal ripples throughout the realm. From here, anything born would be bestowed with chaos, defying the natural order. So how does this relate to Havik here? Well, I believe that Havik's own physical being serves as a much better host than probably anyone else prior to him. Hear me out. At the dawn of time and creation, there is what is more commonly known as the Void, which has also previously been referred to as Chaos, a state in the universe prior to the gods that's commonly referred to in Greek mythology. And as we have seen throughout the series with the inclusion of the Titans and the Edenian Pantheon, there's a lot of Greek mythology that influences it. So on paper, Havik is the perfect host physically because it does perfectly embody what the one being represents. However, that doesn't mean that Havik himself is unstoppable. Yes, he is a Chaos Realmer, but he does still fall under the umbrella of mortal, or as loose as the term can be used here. He is a lesser being that on paper would be susceptible to his influence. That is, if it were not for one thing that completely changes this equation, the hourglass of time. Whilst the Titans are a race of their own, it is also a mantle that can be passed from hand to hand. It's a state that can alter one's physical being and elevate it to that of a higher form. I believe that by acquiring the hourglass, that elevated sense of divinity is why Havik isn't susceptible to his influence. Thus, he has the perfect body the primordial needs, but not one he can influence. But now that comes under his ascension to that of the One Being. How is that made possible? Well, clearly as seen in the trailer, it will be made through the use of the Kamidogus. The reason why this is so strange and unique is because currently in Liu Kang's new era, there are actually a few realms missing here, meaning that only 4 of the 6 Kamidogus exist in the present. As the Chaos realm is notably absent, and Outworld and Edenia seem to be one, meaning that for Havik to have acquired these, he would have had to have forged 2 more Kamidogus, which is also why I believe he's captured Geras, a fellow timekeeper that he wishes to use as a catalyst. But that's purely hypothetical on my end. All in all though, this does start painting a very interesting contrast to how this One Being does work and function, because Havik's ascension to divinity through the hourglass and the Kamidogus is what I do believe allows him to tame and manipulate the power of the One Being. He ticks all of the right parameters needed to utilize his strength and power. He is the perfect catalyst. But now, just how strong is this version of Havik? Well, honestly, pretty fucked up. In theory, this could arguably be the strongest character in all of MK canon. Because first, you get a character who can't die, one who's nigh immortal. Then you pair him up with the Hourglass of Time, that elevates him to that of Titanhood. And then of course, you then amplify those base traits with the 6 Kamidogus in his flesh? That's kind of busted. With the power of the One Being at his fingertips and the hourglass in his possession, this makes him a literal multiversal threat, as he can peer into other timelines with the power of a great creator god, spreading chaos from world to world, from realm to realm. This is the likes and sorts of power we've never seen in any timeline, which makes it all that much more terrifying, knowing that the wielder of such power is Havik. So, to answer the question in the title, is Havik the new One Being? No, I think he is something far more dangerous. Again, this is all hypothetical on my part, but what Havik has at his fingertips here is a form of power we've never seen anyone embody. So naturally, I'm very excited to see what becomes of him in this new era. Like, how does Liu Kang stop someone this powerful? As he's currently stripped of his immortality, Liu Kang has not been this vulnerable in a very long while. Of course, with that now all said and everything covered here, what are your thoughts on Titan Havik and the power he wields? What do you think he's capable of? And what do you think he'll do? Please do comment down below, because I'd love to hear what you have to say. Personally, I'm very excited to see what happens here, as it ticks a lot of personal boxes for me. It makes Havik a mainline villain for once, and also reincorporates the One Being idea after so long. But for now everyone, that's been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. I'll catch you in the next one.